Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Ball Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. This is part of our ELD Legacy Open Championship, which took place April 13th. The leather playmat on the side there of Andrew going to go to the champion, along with a healthy share of the 100% payout that we do. So if we take in $2,000 worth of entries, we give out $2,000 worth of store credit along with the playmat, and every player gets a limited edition pin. I'm actually wearing the one from our Pauper Open here. These are hand finished wooden pins that are to become collectibles, just limited edition, part of the history of the store. And Andrew here on Grixis Delver versus Goblins. Goblins used to be the best deck in the format. Now Grixis Delver is considered to be the best. Of course, when I say used to be for Goblins, I'm talking way back at the dawn of the format. But it has been a powerful deck throughout the entire history of Legacy. Deathrite Shaman was a difficult card for it to contend with. And let's see here. Let's catch up on the action. Aether Vial getting forced. A second Aether Vial with no land drop, meaning Steve's probably all in on this Aether Vial. Would have been nice for him if that first one resolved. Really sets him back significantly, seeing as how he's stuck on one land. Of course, the rest of his hand almost certainly just Goblins. And this is a critical turn here. It looks like Andrew going to fire off a Brainstorm with no fetch ready. That's how important this is. Can he daze or stop this Aether Vial? Is it worth Force of Willing? Probably, if he's got it. And no, it resolves. So Andrew down some cards off of Force of Will. And Aether Vial ends up resolving anyways the second time around. Let's see what it ramps up to. Oh, and another Aether Vial. So it looks like Steve's going to be doing some serious work off of just a single land here. Young Pyromancer for Andrew, starting to generate red creatures. He may end up with more red creatures this game than Steve, depending on how these cantrips chain together. Seeing a Lightning Bolt, a potentially useful card there. It looks like Andrew a little land light as well. That Wasteland only going to tap for colorless. Oh no, he does have a fetch, so he's going to be in great shape then. Really all he needs is a couple of dual lands, and he will be totally fine. And sending with Young Pyromancer. Looks like Steve considering whether or not to activate Vial, and he does, putting in Lackey. And we've got a fetch for Volcanic, and it looks like that Lightning Bolt going to be used to clear out this Goblin Lackey, creating another 1/1 Elemental. We'll see what the power level of Steve's Goblins do versus this army of 1/1s. Of course, there are a bunch of cards that can clear out a bunch of small creatures. Goblin Chain Whirler, Goblin Sharpshooter, Mog Fanatic can potentially clear out this Young Pyromancer and at least stop the amassing army. Ooh, looks like double Gurmag Angler in hand perhaps, as these are flipping by for Andrew. And attacking becoming more and more of a concern. Goblin Pile Driver being put in off of Violet 2. Violet 1 not being activated. And passing the turn. Indicating probably not having a hasty Goblin in hand. Both a War Chief or Chieftain. A bunch of options to give your creatures haste. A key part of Goblins. Steve may be also just trying to play very conservatively. And here's True Name Nemesis, pro blue, but I'm sorry, pro Steve, but Goblin Pile Driver does have pro blue. So that may be a bit of a battle. Matron here And what do you get? Let me know in the comments what you would go for. Offhand, a Goblin Chain Whirler. He's got it in the deck. That may just be the right play, hands down. Another option could have been Gem Palm Incinerator to get rid of just the Pyromancer and draw a card. But he just wants to completely mop up. 4 and 3, these vials really moving up the mana curve. And there's a Ringleader. Seeing a Singleton War Chief along with 3 lands. And this looks like it could amass quite a bit of damage as is. He's going to hold off. Game plan likely to be vialing in end of turn the Chain Whirler. Making it very difficult for Andrew to commit to the board here. Any small creatures, but this is no small creature. This is a Gurmag Angler, a 5/5. And he's going to have no issues blocking a Goblin Piledriver. Granted, they'll both likely die, but that guy is enormous. And does Steve just put this in end of turn? Or does he put in the War Chief? He'll go with the War Chief. One more activation. Now we get the Chain Whirler. And how many more goblins can get added on? Ooh, and cycling Gem Palm Incinerator. That is super spicy. Getting rid of the Gurmag Angler and tons of damage. Is this 15? We've got 9, 10. Yes, that's more than 15. So Goblin showing some huge explosiveness off of basically a 1-land hand for quite a few turns. Grixis looked like it was in pretty reasonable shape. But not for long, as all of the hasty goblins combining to make that Goblin Piledriver super lethal. Piledriver, a card that's fallen out of favor with some Goblin players. It's very vulnerable to 1-for-1 trades, having just a 2 backside. But I think the Pro Blue may be more relevant now than it has been for the past number of years. It gets through both Delver of Secrets and Terramander, gets past True Name Nemesis, which is no small thing, and also gets past Baleful Strix, which is one of the kind of best creature control cards in the format. Black and blue mana, and that casting cost for Baleful Strix means that it really can't do its job versus the most dangerous part of the Goblin deck, and you don't really care if they're blocking one of your many 1/1 Goblins with their Baleful Strix. So Piledriver may be back to being the real deal. Let's see how this turns out. I know there was actually several Goblin decks in the tournament, and some of them did quite well. Heard some very memorable stories of Goblins. Actually, one of the Goblins decks got past Goblin Charbelcher. Another one actually beat Sneak and Show. Goblin's a deck that if you underestimate can definitely get you. Punishes bad draws. Also puts a lot of pressure on decisions about opening hands. They do have a lot of ways of interacting which are not necessarily obvious. If you let Goblins get 2 out of hand, they can literally do crazy things like handle very large creatures with the Gem Palm Incinerator. They can get around standstills with cards like Siege Gang Commander to actually win without ever even attacking. So Goblins has a lot of tricks. Polluted Delta for Grixis Delver, or maybe that's a Verdant Catacombs. No, that's Polluted, I think. For a basic island, there we go, that's the answer. And looking to play around the mana denial elements of Goblins which can also really get you. Wasteland and Rishadenport. Oh, and we do have a Rishadenport here. Not really at its strongest versus Grixis Delver. They do have a bunch of very inexpensive threats that can really get the job done. May be able to keep them off of a card like True Name Nemesis for several turns, though. And we've got a red mana off of Cavern of Souls, saying that Goblin Piledriver will be uncounterable. Grixis Delver, considering what's going on, brainstorming during the end step, presumably, perhaps in response to Goblin Piledriver, though not likely to have any responses there. You can attempt to counter a spell that is made uncounterable by Cavern. That is just super unfortunate when you do. It is a legal target. That'd probably be a friendlier way for them to template the card, but then it wouldn't get around Chalice of the Void if they did just put your Goblin spells can't be the target of spells or abilities. You'd still get KO'd by Chalice, so that is not the world we live in. Sometimes you just get your opponent to throw a Force of Will at your uncounterable Goblins. Wasteland taking care of that Cavern. And here's a Delver of Secrets, along with a Ponder making sure it flips. So we'll see who actually wins this race. Delver going to be coming in for 3 a turn. Piledriver right now just 1 per turn, but that's likely to change if Steve has any more mana. Oh, and he does not. Super light on mana again. Andrew with no mana issues at all right now. All 3 colors. Got a nice mix of cards in hand. He's got Spell Pierce, Lightning Bolt, and he's just going to commit another Delver. I believe he'll know if this one's going to flip based off of the previous Ponder. And Lightning Bolt clearing out the lone Goblin on Steve's side in this game, feeling incredibly one-sided, super fast, going to discard, losing a Goblin Matron, and this one's pretty much in the books. Looks like we're going to be going to Game 3 very shortly. True Name Nemesis, and there we go. Steve sees the writing on the wall. Let's leave enough time in case it becomes a slog, which is something Goblins can potentially create with cards like Rishadenport and Wasteland. Steve going to hope that perhaps this game, Andrew has the same type of fate that he's had both games of being super, super bottlenecked on mana. Curious to see if this is a function of a greedy mana base or just variance. Goblin's not exactly the easiest deck to get a consensus on. Very often a deck for brewers. Results may vary, but I think it is very solid in its core concepts. And reasonably positioned. They've got a lot of toolbox creatures. Goblin Crater Maker, able to handle cards like Emrakul, opposing Aether Vials, equipment. I mean, Crater Maker is a huge, huge role player in the deck. Able to handle just so many problem permanents. And many of the Goblin decks are actually going black now to support cards like Warren's Weirding and Phyrexian Stronghold. Volrath Stronghold? The one that puts the creature back on top of your library. I believe that's Volrath Stronghold. For one of the black, you can just put one of your goblins back on top of your library. Recurring cards like Gempalm Incinerator, totally backbreaking versus many decks. And let's see if Steve has any of that type of tech going on. So far, basic mountains all over the place. Goblin Lackey off of that basic. And let's see what Andrew can do here. Bolt, probably the best answer to it. Trying to get a guy in the way often falls victim to Gempalm Incinerator. Lackey turning sideways. Grabbing an Underground. Do we have a Fatal Push coming up? What is this black and blue mana for here? Oh no, he's taking the damage. Oh, and stifling. Okay, that's not great, but it's something. So Steve has his lackey trigger stifled, and Rashad and Port now tapping down that Underground Sea. Wasteland taking out the Rashad and Port, and now we've got a key turn. Goblins has engineered a turn with no interaction. And oh, Siege Gang. That is exactly where you want to be. And another lackey and a Wasteland for the Underground Sea. What a explosive turn of events here. Double lackey. If Steve has another mana source in his hand, he's going to be able to clear out any type of blockers. This is going to be over super fast. Andrew going to perhaps need some type of sweeper. Just so many goblins can potentially be coming in here. Let's see what these lackeys can do for Steve. What's he got for triggers? Trigger number 1, Matron. Trigger number 2, perhaps going to be Ringleader. Let's see what he goes with. It can be any goblin for free right now. What do? Do you go card advantage? Do you go big? Does he have Krenko? Looks like Trash Master here. A Wasteland for Andrew. And this is looking like it's going to be a wrap. Real soon here. That lightning bolt. It's like, what do you even target? Targeting Siege Gang is going to get him thrown at your face. And the Trash Master is targeted. He is thrown in Andrew's direction, and Steve taking it down with an explosive game 3.